Hi, this is Sally Morgan, physical therapist, craniosacral therapist, and Tellington T-Touch practitioner for animals and people. This is Tristan. He's a Corgi, and this is an episode of Conversations with a Corgi with an actual Corgi today. We had such a good time at the equine fair yesterday, visiting with people and looking at the millions of things you can buy that, since I don't have a horse right now, I don't have to buy. And connecting with some old friends, and I did miss Tristan a lot. And when we came home, we had a quick walk and then a big Corgi dinner time. So today I want to continue our talk about things regarding animal end of life and hospice care. And today I want to talk about the benefits of having an animal communicator work with you when you are nearing the end of your animal's life. First of all, I highly recommend engaging an animal communicator that you like prior to the time that your animal may be crossing the rainbow bridge. So when they're getting to be a little older and a little arthritic and a little less active, that may be a good time to find somebody that you can work with to give you some information about how the animal's feeling, how his body is feeling. Does he have pain in his body? Are there things he wants to do that he hasn't done? A lot of people are now starting to make like end-of-life bucket lists for their dogs, bringing them for puppuccinos at Starbucks and taking them for trips to the beach and, playing their favorite games, visiting with their friends. So an animal communicator can help you not necessarily do that, but figure out what your dog really loves to do that you might not be aware of yet. Like maybe there's something particular that he only gets for dinner occasionally that he would like to have more of. I've had really good luck with people telling me what kinds of treats my animals like more than another, although generally I'm able to figure that out. But with different types of animals, like horses, for example, it's not always obvious whether or not they like Skittles more than peppermints. So having an animal communicator in that situation can be really helpful. And certainly as you establish a relationship with that person, it's going to help you down the line. Now, I have worked with people throughout my animals' lives only to find near the end of their life that that person was not really good for me any longer. And so don't be afraid to call 2 or 3 different ones, and check in with your pet like every 6 months when they're like age 13, 14, 15, so that you have a rapport with somebody that you know is going to be helpful when it's near the end of your animal's life. And for me, when my animals have been really just at the very end of their time with me on this earth, animal communicators have been really helpful, sort of reassuring me about what I'm doing and whether it's helpful. And certainly having that rapport with them is super helpful once the animal has crossed the rainbow bridge, because that's when you really need to talk to them. You are so emotionally distraught when you lose a pet. I can't describe. We all know. We've all been there. We've all had animals die. And you really need to reach out to people that are helpful. And in that time, that's a good time to work with an animal communicator that you've known for a while and you have a rapport with, so that they can tell you how the animal's doing. Has he seen your other pets or departed loved ones? Often they thank you for the care that you gave them at the end of their life or their experience with you. And a lot of people I've worked with, I had one dog that this little Italian greyhound, oh my gosh, that dog was in such poor condition when I met her. She was just so slim and, pressure sores and tremendous things going on with that dog. And many people had told the woman to put the dog down, and she, thank God, trusted her heart and did not do it. So she brought the dog to me, and really the dog had some amount of life force left. She was near the end of her life, but she wasn't one paw over the bridge yet. And the person had lost several other pets, had been kicked out of their housing, had lost their job. They were in a complete and total emotional upheaval and stressful times in their life. And so that dog managed to live 2 to 3 more months. And when she finally passed, she was very, very peaceful. And this person, of course, by then had settled her life down a little bit. And that dog felt it was really her job to stay with that person until the person was okay. And when the dog finally passed, the person felt like, this is right, this timing feels correct. To have me lose this dog I've had 15 years at this time of upheaval with all these other unexpected deaths and trauma in my life would not have been good. I really needed that dog. And who can measure how much life force love can give to an animal or a person. And so that dog, as miserable as she was in her body, her emotional strength was very strong, as was her spiritual strength. So she was able to stay with that person for a couple more months. Now, honestly, if I didn't do the kind of work I do and I had just looked at this dog randomly, I would have said, oh my gosh. But that dog proved to be stronger than anyone had suspected. And thank God I do the kind of work I do. And I have ways to assess the life force in the dog and the spiritual and emotional strength of an animal near the end of their life, so that I was able to help that woman. And if an animal communicator had worked with her later, which in fact one did, in fact, I think it was somebody I recommended, that person did say, thank God you didn't put me down. I wanted to be with you and to see you through this hard time in your life. And I knew it was a good time to go because you were okay and you had plenty of available emotional energy to be with me and to say goodbye to me, so that everything was peaceful. So that's something that is priceless for someone. When you have an animal communicator tell you something like that, it really can make everything in your life better. So having a good rapport with someone way before the end of your dog's life can really be beneficial when you want to communicate with them across the bridge. A lot of dogs, I don't think I've ever had one not report gratitude to the person that had rescued them or given them a good life or given them rich experiences in their life. Every animal always has something that makes you feel better to say, and that's with probably 20 different animal communicators that I've worked with personally, and many more that my clients have worked with personally. Always a message from across the bridge is worth its weight in gold. And I think everyone listening probably would agree with that. So it's really important to have that established rapport with a person. It's a rare situation when you find somebody like Penelope Smith, who really popularized animal communication in our country, that I could call in the middle of the night after my horse had died and get such splendid information as she gave me. So that is not typical. It is much more typical to have to search around and find the right person, and that person's life could be different than it was. A lot of the animal communicators I use pretty frequently have now kind of retired from that work and are doing different things in their life, or they're connecting more with sea life than domestic animals. And so things shift. And so you need to be constantly aware. If you have somebody that's a friend who has a good animal communicator, I've had really good luck with that woman, Diana Gann, I told you about, who is a T-Touch practitioner, is in Indiana or Ohio. And the new person I met, Linda McCoy, seems really great. So, I probably will have a reading with them a few times over Tristan's life. He's only 9. Many years left, huh, Biscuit? And connect with them, because once your animal is in that state of nearing the end of their life on earth and their time with you, you really need to have somebody you can absolutely rely on, and who is well aware of your situation and your animal. And so establishing that rapport can be hugely beneficial. And if you've never used an animal communicator and your animal has crossed the rainbow bridge, it is well worth talking to 2 or 3 of them just to get some feedback. How is that pet? Are there any unresolved issues that you need to talk about? It can really help your grieving process. So if you've had a pet pass even 10 years ago, it is well worth trying to find an animal communicator to talk to that pet across the rainbow bridge and give you some insight that may help you process that whole situation. For so many people that I meet, their animals are their family. They don't have contact with their human family anymore. They may have some friends, but their animals are their number one connection to a living creature on this earth. And so when that animal leaves, it is really difficult. And of course, Bernie Siegel has said part of why animals' lives are short is because they teach us about living and dying. I mean, that is part of their role, is to teach us about living and dying. And certainly that's true. And so, it really is helpful to have an animal communicator talk to you about that whole death process, because it really can be helpful for your understanding. I know quite a few people report when they were children and they found out there were supposedly no animals in heaven. That was it. They weren't going to church ever again, and that completely shifted how they feel about many things in life. And of course, as we grow up, we start to realize that that might not be true. But having an animal communicator talk to your animal across the rainbow bridge can be super helpful. And again, shop around, get a couple, try 2 or 3. And many of them have 15-minute sessions that are super affordable. And like I said, some of them will actually talk to you on the phone with your pet, and it's very interesting to observe your pet's behavior when this happens. But more and more now, they're just taking a picture that you email to the person. They do the reading, they email the information back to you with the picture. And I like that because often when I've worked with people that do it over the phone, you're trying to watch the animal, you're trying to think of questions, you're paying attention to what the person's saying, but you're also scribbling frantically to write down what they're saying. And those sessions have been less useful than the ones where I have 2 pages of printed out information in my dog's voice telling me what he needs or what he has to say. So find a good animal communicator, huh, Tristan? It's hard to do sometimes. But there are many good ones out there now. And in fact, I recommend that you personally take an animal communication course with someone. There's some of them you can do online that are fairly reasonably priced. And even that can be helpful to you to feel the presence of your departed animal, and to also help shore up your barometer about when someone's giving you good information and less good information. I have a ton of clients who have taken all kinds of animal communication classes because they just like being with people that feel like they do during the 1 or 2 days of a course like that. So that can also be something to explore. And like I said, there's plenty of them that you can do online, and a lot of them include things like exercises, deep breathing, quieting your mind, going to a place and imagining that pet, and waiting to hear what he has to tell you. So those exercises are really helpful even to connect with the pets that you still have with you. So it's totally worth the investment. Right, Biz? So don't forget, the value of a good animal communicator to your peace of mind once your animal has crossed the rainbow bridge can be infinite. So do look into finding one that works with you. It doesn't have to be anyone near you. And certainly I know my sister had a dog die sort of tragically. And that was about, 8 years ago. And at the time, she was so upset. There was a whole bunch of things that made her feel like it was her fault. But that dog, when I looked at it, had been trying to cross the rainbow bridge for some time. And often when there's something dramatic, like what was going on with this dog, they come to you knowing that you can handle it. Like when my horse died suddenly in a terrible trailer accident. Ironically, the reason I didn't want to be a vet was because I didn't want to ever be called to a horse in a trailer accident, and I've had to do that like 10 times in my life, including the loss of my own horse in a trailer accident. So there's some premonition you have when you're 3 years old. So at that moment, when I looked at the big picture, and I had several people tell me he came to me because he knew I could handle it, that he needed to leave the earth. And in fact, I did. And the same was true for my sister with this tragic, tragic loss of this dog. And when I helped her look at the big picture of that dog's life for the last 6 months and the things that had happened to her, she had almost died like 8 times prior to her final crossing. And a lot of animals do want to take it into their own hands. And this dog certainly did. She had a lot going on, and she was happy for her life, but she was ready to have her life be over. And my sister provided her with that situation that made that possible. And seeing it in the big perspective was super helpful to understanding what happened and that it wasn't your fault. Animals have their own lives. They are not necessarily completely connected to us in every moment. And so even if your dog dies tragically, it is not usually your fault. It is usually their destiny and their path. And you were lucky enough to share the rest of their life with them. And that's true for even wild animals that you might see, a squirrel that lives in your yard that you see in the road, and you feel that you should have tried to save him in some way. Sometimes you can't. Animals are just following their own destinies like we are, and having an animal communicator put that in perspective can be really helpful. You are so full of kisses today, little Corgi. The poor guy. He's bathed in his Advantage 2 right now to try to cut down on the house guests that we didn't want. Not great. but you're still cute and fluffy. And this morning I had a bathtub situation. I used some old soap to try to use up the bottle. And I had one of those situations from a Lucille Ball show where the bubbles came up out of the tub and started to mound up and come across the entire bathroom. And typically when you smash them, they go down. Well, these were just fluffing and fluffing and fluffing. Oh, it was a nightmare. I had to empty the tub like 3 times to get all of those bubbles out. That's why we're late today. Over bubbled. All right, everybody, have a great day. We'll see you tomorrow at about 9:30 because it's Saturday. And I'm not seeing a horse on Saturday this week, which is a good thing because I really need to go into town and do some things I can only do before noon on Saturdays. So that's going to be a good thing. And we've got some dogs to see today. We're meeting some people for lunch, so that's all fun. And recovering from the horse event. That was exhausting. All right, we'll see you guys on Saturday. Bye-bye. Have a great day.